Okay, 7 o'clock on the dot. Let's get rolling. Hello, you guys are more than welcome to what are you eating? Is that an empanada?
It's a taco.
Oh, okay. I love both, so that's fantastic.
I'm all about it.
I love it. So glad to see your guys' faces. Hello. Well, my name is Taylor Kozel. I am one of the co-chairs of the Student Involvement Committee, and Jennifer Henderson is the other co-chair, and she is with us as well. And so excited to just do this resume workshop with you guys. My disclaimer is, this is teach you how to build an effective resume. Um, what I teach you is not necessarily going to be the reason that you get a job. you know and of course what we go over is a guide, it's a template, and so you have the liberty to mix and match or put your own creativity into it, but these are things that are helpful to students and practitioners, because I think there might be some practitioners on this call too. For those who came in after I said it earlier, but my idea with this little workshop is for it to be interactive, and so if you have a resume already, go ahead and pull that up. Or if you're like, hey, I just want to start fresh, then have a blank document and I will take you step by step through my process in particular. And if y'all have questions along the way, I'm an open book. So please feel free to do that. All right. So just like a little bit about me, because in case you're like never seen me before and you're like, who is this random person? My name's Taylor. I mentioned that before. I have an OT Instagram. I'm an OT who specializes in aquatics and neuro. Love adaptive sports, community mental health. I like all the things. I kind of always had a knack for creating stuff and editing, and so, which is very weird, but it is almost therapeutic for me to edit stuff. And so I started doing resume editing when I was in OT school. And then once I was a practitioner, I had people just sending them to me. And that's kind of where this workshop came from. And now it's just between personal statements and writing resumes. That's my I don't know, my thing. It's fun. So, anyways, OT experiences is kind of everywhere. I'm currently in academia. I'm an assistant professor and academic fieldwork coordinator for an OTD program here in Tennessee. And I just, like I mentioned in the beginning, I hope that this course will give you some options for setting up what you need in your resume. So, you're here if you're like, my resume is not passing the vibe check. I have no idea where to start. Like, you go ahead and you're just like, what is the purpose of a resume? How is it going to help me? And so I mentioned before, I know some other people came in a little bit later, but go ahead and open that resume up, and we're gonna just get started with creating your resume. So the first thing we have to understand is the purpose of a resume. And that essentially is to highlight your skills and your experiences, and it's really to start a conversation. We don't want to be word vomiting on somebody when we are writing our resume, which can be very challenging when you're first starting out. And even later on, you're like, how much is too much to put onto my resume? But essentially, what we want to do is we want to start a conversation and we want to leave them wanting more, them being whoever is reading your resume, whether that is a resume you are submitting for a fieldwork placement, because some places do require resumes, or if this is once you're graduating, that you're submitting this to a job. Reasons why your resume might not be passing the vibe check right now. It's too visually overstimulating, whether that's from fonts, pictures. I already touched on that there are too many words on there. Um, Another problem that I've seen, or a challenge that I've seen with resumes that I've edited in the past, is there's too much fluff. It's kind of like when you're writing an essay and you're like, I think I'm going to add in this extra stuff to make it fit the word limit criteria because I'm struggling. And so sometimes we put too much fluff in our resume and it actually takes away from what you're trying to tell somebody instead of supporting it. Another reason is it's just difficult to understand. Maybe things are disorganized. And then the kind of fifth reason is it's just too long. And usually it's too long because of a combination of the previously listed factors. So basics for formatting a picture is you should keep your font consistent. Here I put Times New Roman and Arial font because that is kind of the basic to start. But if you choose a font, keep it the same throughout your resume. No font size should be smaller than a 12-point font because after a 12-point font, it gets very, very challenging to read. And again, my question would be, are we making it an 11-point font because we're trying to add more in? So should we go back and maybe make things more concise? Black font color, and no more than 2 pages. Now here's the trick. People are always like, wait, I thought it was no more than 1 pages. So the way that I view it and the way that I was taught it, especially as a student, is it's 1 page front and back. So technically 2 pages because it is literally impossible to put all of your clinical work and your schooling and any extracurriculars on 1 page. And so even once you graduate too, it's kind of expected that even as new grads that you will have more than 1 page. But we want to make sure that we're making use of our time. Employers spend an average of 7 seconds looking at a resume. So if there's pictures, fancy borders, these QR codes, all this stuff all over the place, it really actually takes away from them viewing the skills that you're wanting to highlight. And a little note on pictures, because I know sometimes people are like, oh, I want to show my personality, but what a hiring manager had told me one time is that they are supposed to have non-bias when it comes to viewing resumes. And so if I have a picture on it, I can't truly blindly judge a candidate. And that's why people are encouraged not to have their picture on a resume. And that's just to prevent any type of discrimination or any bias, implicit or otherwise. And so my recommendation would not be to have your picture on your resume. Again, these are just recommendations. You can do whatever you want afterwards. But I'll try to support, I'll share my kind of reasoning behind these things. So what we're gonna do now is get to your resume and we're gonna get moving. So if you haven't already, go ahead and select all on your resume and make the font all the same. Just go ahead and do it now. And even if you want to go ahead and make all of the font 12, and we'll just start there. And then you can kind of finagle things after that. And I will say, while people are doing that, a note on resumes. So I actually have a couple of resumes. I have one resume document that is everything I've ever done in my life. Any work experience, any fieldwork experience, it's all in one document. When I am applying to a certain job, and again, that could be maybe a certain fieldwork that you're a level 2 fieldwork that you're applying to, or a job post grad, I pull relevant work experience from my main resume template and kind of craft my resume to fit the job that I'm applying to. Now, of course, some things will always stay consistent, like my fieldwork and my schooling and that type of stuff. But when we get into the nuances of like work experience that we've had in the past, somebody doesn't maybe necessarily need to know that I did babysitting, or, if I didn't have a job that is relevant to the job that I'm applying to. So that's just kind of another fun fact. So for your first thing, bam, at the top, and you're going to put this in your heading. So people tend to put it on the first line of a Word document, but if you actually put this information in your heading, it'll pull through to the second page and it'll free up space in your Word document itself. So that's just kind of like a little life hack. You want to put your first and last name and any credentials afterwards. So if you're a student, you got OT-S or OTD-S or OTA-S, whatever your credentials are. If you're a practitioner, you would put your respective credentials after that. And then you want to put your email and phone number. I have a LinkedIn profile. That's what I have. So if you have a LinkedIn, this would be a place to put it. If you don't have a LinkedIn, don't feel like you need to put that on there. A question I get is, hey, what about my address? Should that go on my resume? It really doesn't need to go on your resume because when you're applying for a job, you're going to be filling in all of your personal information on your application. And so there really isn't a relevancy to your address needing to be, like your additional personal information like that needing to be on your resume. So I would say no resume. And I took screenshots from my actual resume to show you guys. And so this is kind of what what that space in the header should look like. And then, of course, once you finish your program, make sure you go back and you change. And once you pass your boards and get your license, get all those extra alphabet letters behind your name, make sure to update that accordingly. So we've got our contact info. Now the first line, or the next line, it's going to be our title that's going to say professional objective. And this is something that I think I don't see a lot of on resumes until I edit them and I tell people to add them in there. So your professional objective is essentially just one or two sentences that says what you're looking for, who you want to work with, and why you're looking for it. And so my little formula that I came up with, so you would say my professional objective is to obtain a, what type of job do you want? Do you want a full-time, part-time, contract job, position as a occupational therapist or occupational therapy assistant in blank setting? So maybe it's to obtain a full-time position as an occupational therapist in inpatient rehab that will allow me to do what? What are you hoping to get from this job? While continuing to develop skills. So in this one little sentence, I've told you this is a job I want, this is a setting I want to work with. I think this will allow me to do this and this while also doing this. And so my one that I created was to obtain a full-time position as an occupational therapist in neurorehabilitation that will allow me to utilize my skills and work with diverse client populations while continuing to develop my clinical expertise. Just one sentence. And now, if they only take 7 seconds to read my resume and they use 2 of them to read that, they know enough about me and why I'm here. And again, if you're a student, really it's to obtain a position as an occupational therapist when occupational therapy practitioner when you graduate. You're just like, please hire me. But this is where we cater it to the position that we're applying to. So if you're applying to inpatient rehab, I would tweak this so that it is inpatient rehab. If it's adult specific, I would tweak it so that it's adult specific. I think that little bit of extra intentionality with your words will help you stand out to the people that are reading your resume. So that is my professional objective. You don't have to have this worked out right now for the sake of the workshop. I think I toyed around with different verbiage that I wanted for like 2 weeks until I finalized something. I would just say that even though I shared mine with you guys, don't copy mine. Because if all y'all apply to these schools or the locations in Tennessee, they're all going to see the same professional objective and be like, that's sus. Okay. Yes. What is your question? Oh my gosh. We met at TNOTA conference. Yes. Yes, I remember you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Kyra, and my question is, so for the professional objective, do you change it depending on kind of what you're sending in your resume for? I think an example, because I know across like occupational therapy stuff, you probably keep it generally the same, but like if I was applying for a scholarship or like an e-board position or like something else, do you ever change the professional objective or is it always kind of the same?
Yes, I think that's a great question. I would say yes to cater it to whether it's like you mentioned, I didn't even think about scholarships, but yes, I think that would be great. It just gives a little snippet of what you're applying to and why. That's a great question.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? Maybe y'all just raise your hands or yell at me if you have other questions. Okay, so we've got our heading, we've got our professional objective. The next section is going to be your education. So the key thing with education is you want to include the name of your school, the type of degree you got, the city and state where they are located, and you just have to put the month and the year that you graduated. You can obviously have the flexibility to put the date if you want, but I tend to just do month and year just for simplicity. We want to place these in reverse chronological order. And so what this means is that your most recent education is at the top, and then it's the one that you had before that and the one that you had before that. And so the way I had mine set up on here, so I had education, and then I had my school name. I got a Doctor of Occupational Therapy, city and state in Florida. So this was my OT degree, the second line. And I blocked some of this out because I don't need y'all knowing like my whole life story. My whole life story. But so I got my OT degree. The second line was my bachelor's degree, and my one before that was my associate's degree. I stopped putting high school graduation on my resume once I was in grad school because it would be expected that you graduate high school at that point, after pursuing these additional degrees. But it doesn't mean you can't have it on there if you want. Let's see. A question I get asked is about GPAs. So my personal thought is if you had like a 4.0 the entire time, I think maybe that's worth mentioning on there. But the reality, oh, my dog's barking. The reality that I've had in my experience is that employers aren't looking at your resume. What they're looking at is, did you graduate? Did you pass your boards? Do you have your license? They're not looking at your GPA. And I would also say that having your GPA on there will not necessarily put you above any other candidates that may not have had their GPA on there either. Again, this is a personal preference. If you feel led to have your GPA on there, I think that's fine. But those were kind of the key things that I've at least observed and being part of interviewing processes and then talking to managers when I was going through my own hiring journey is they really just want to make sure you passed your boards. And then they want to know about you and what you're passionate about and how you're going to contribute to the organization, not necessarily if you were a 4.0 student. And I would also say, you know, we shouldn't necessarily be defined by our degrees. Like your degree that you got is not going to dictate the type of clinician or how good of a clinician that you are. So that's a separate TED Talk for another day. But you can include it on there if you'd like. So we've got our education. So the next thing that goes after education is your clinical fieldwork experience. We're not doing jobs. That's going to be in a later category, but we're doing clinical fieldwork experience because your fieldwork experience as an OTA student, is your fieldwork. Like your fieldwork is your job experience. Sorry, let me rephrase that. When you're applying for OT jobs. And so we want that to be BAM first. And so when we're doing our clinical fieldwork experience, just like education, everything in a resume is reverse chronological order. And so we want to, I'll go to the next page so that you can kind of see how I have it set up. So I did my capstone. It was called residency back then, but I haven't changed the language on here. So I did my capstone. I have the location I did it at, and then I have the duration of time. My kind of key bullet points that I put is location, the setting I was in, education, meaning what types of skills did I learn or did I obtain or did I apply? And once you go on fieldwork, I really encourage you to think about what those educational skills were, because if I just read education, I'll know, okay, she did all these different types of behavioral therapy and wellness plans, community reintegration. Under education, though, we don't want to necessarily put skills that would be expected of you to have completed. So, for example, if you're evaluating people or you're doing treatment plans, that's to be expected. Additional education, like if you were exposed to like additional wheelchair measuring, or if you were exposed to, I don't know, I'm going to use aquatic therapy in there too. These are just extra skills that say, hey, I have this and I can bring it to the table that maybe other applicants do not have. Other than that, I put presentation. So when I was on my capstone, I had to do a presentation. And then typically on level 2 fieldworks, you have a in-service or presentation that you share during your level 2, at the end of your level 2 experience. It's pretty common across level 2 fieldworks. I think some of them might do it differently, maybe not necessarily as an in-service, but some type of project. Again, not all programs, but in my experience, a lot of them do have that. And so we want to include that. Like, what did you present on when you were on fieldwork? And so I'll jump down to my level 2s now. So I had my capstone, my second level 2, I did a presentation on ASC and adulthood and implications for OT practice. That's huge. And I don't need to go into more detail about that. Remember, the resume is meant to be a conversation starter. So if I just put the title there, boom, people reading that are going to be like, oh, I wonder what that's about. And then they can ask you, like, hey, tell me more about this presentation that you did. Or my other one was, tell me, what did you find out about the role of the therapist in suicide prevention and suicide ideation? And this is where we can start to take away some of that over verbiage or word vomit that we see on a resume. It's just clear to the point. And so, got your capstone if you are in the OTD program, level 2, and then level 1. Students always forget to put their level 1s on their resumes, and I think you can take so much. There's so much value that comes from level 1 experiences, whether it's the populations that you are working with or things that you were exposed to. So please do not forget to put your level 1 fieldwork on your resume. That would be like my biggest encouragement to you, because it's still fieldwork. And again, if our fieldwork is representative of our clinical work, our clinical experience as an OT, we want to be able to highlight those things. Any questions or anything I can clarify?
I have a question.
Yes, hello.
Hey, my level one field work was in 2020, and that's when COVID was rampant. So we did simulcase. Should I still put that or
I would still put that because that to me mimics telehealth in some capacity, or
okay?
knowing how to use an electronic medium to interact with OT services. So I would
Okay.
personally still put it. I think you can milk it either way, because you probably had to learn how to like understand the OT process virtually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Thank
great
you.
question because I bet you there are a lot of people in that similar situation. And even outside of the pandemic, I know a lot of programs do use this simulcase for level 1 fieldworks too. So that's a wonderful question. Any other thoughts? So next, work experience. I put this on here for just to kind of have in the back of your head for once you start uh, working again too, or if you're already a practitioner. If there are practitioners that are reading this, you may not necessarily put your fieldwork experience first. You would put your OT work experience first. But this is also the time where um, you could put relevant work experience here. I think actually I might have, oh no, this is where I have it. Let me make sure. Yes, okay. So for work experience, again, you can cater this to the job or the field work that you're applying to. Um, I think as long as you can explain the connection between your job and what you're applying to, I think it's fine to put on your resume. And I'll leave that up to you guys as like individual decisions, but I wouldn't necessarily put like half a page, if not a full page of prior work experience on your resume if they don't necessarily all relate to what you're doing. An example, I worked as a rehab tech, so it's kind of in the rehab world. So that could be good if maybe you're working with, I don't know, people that have had spinal cord injuries and you did some kind of work with that community, then having that on there is good. But I trust your guys' judgment on uh, what you keep and what you choose to take out because it'll be so individualized for each person. Yes, ma'am.
You're all like, I trust your judgment. And I'm like, well, I don't. I don't trust
Ah!
my judgment.
Okay, here, I'll judge. We listen
Okay,
to
judge me, honestly. I'm all for feedback. So I haven't had like many jobs. I've actually only worked like one job, but it doesn't pertain to occupational therapy other than my like work study jobs. So I've worked at a car wash since I was 16 back home. And like every time that I go home for like Christmas break or summer break, they let me work there still. So I put it on my resume kind of as like it speaks value to like that I'm a good worker, hard worker, to like the fact that they still let me come back, even if my break is like just 2 weeks. They just still let me come home and work. But a car wash is obviously not necessarily directly related to occupational therapy. I mean, I could stretch it so far and like find a correlation,
Yeah.
but it's obviously not really. And then my other two jobs were just work study jobs, and they were like research assistant jobs. So again, not necessarily pertaining to OT, other than like obviously we have evidence-based practice. So like the research, again, I could stretch it to make it correlate, but it doesn't directly correlate. So do you usually recommend just kind of, would you recommend leaving work experience off or?
I think you should keep your work study stuff on there,
Okay.
especially with them being research related. I think people tap into those skills. I also think you could stretch your car wash one. I mean, there's a variety of skills. Like what are some of the things you have to do? Like you have to be organized, probably have to deal with people.
Yeah. So I definitely do a lot there. They actually like let me keep my manager position so that when I come back, I'm still a
Oh,
manager. Um,
yes, you're a manager.
I like take orders. It's like a full service car wash. So like they do the vacuum and so I take orders, I vacuum, like
Yeah.
prep the car, and then sometimes I work as the cashier, and then sometimes I work as a stocker. So like I just restock like the shelves. There's like a store inside of the car wash where you pay that has like snacks, car stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can put that, especially with it being a managerial type role. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that could, the way that, or what I hear when you're talking is like multitasking, being
Mhm.
organized. And that's really what happens when you're in the clinic is you've got a lot of patients and you've got a lot of people that you got to keep in, in mind and treatment plans. And so I think that would speak to your skills that you already have at baseline coming into field work or coming into a job.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I was going to say with her question that she just asked, I think it's also very pertinent to put the length of time that you have worked there because it shows that you are a quality employee that sticks around. Because I will say, from my perspective in looking at resumes and hiring people, sometimes it's a red flag to me if I see that they're switch jobs for no good reason. Yes, if you move or have, some other life-changing circumstance, but if you're switching too much, that can also be like, I wonder why this person has switched so much. So having some longevity with your job is something that's a positive to point out.
100%.
Thank you.
Okay. I kept this on here for the people that are possibly not students. And I keep saying that. I don't think I explained that to y'all. The email for this, the listserv, went out to the whole TNOTA listserv, not just the student listserv. So I kept some things in here just in case people joined. But if you do teaching experience, or maybe, I don't know, sometimes in a role you get to be like a GA. If you had teaching involved as a GA, but I think a GA would also go under your work experience if you guys do have that. So don't forget about that if you're a GA. Okay, so then now we have our title of research. So I would say for your work study, you could either put it under work experience or under research. As students, a lot of times that we're involved in research with faculty, and this is what we want to highlight here. If you are paired up with a faculty mentor on a project, put the location, like here in this example, I did the school, and then the duration of time that I worked on it. You are a researcher when you're pairing up with faculty. And then underneath the, or your first bullet point underneath that, I would just put the title. And so the research that I did was the impact of service dogs on occupational engagement in veterans with disabilities. Excuse me. And then you want to put underneath that who your faculty mentor is or was. And then underneath that, just have a little skills section. What types of skills did you gain doing research? And it's almost like we have to do an activity analysis on it. So when you're engaged in research, maybe you are analyzing data, you're doing SPSS or Qualtrics experience. Maybe you are writing up presentations, writing up manuscripts. And so there's all these additional skills that you're gaining by being involved in research that you can include in there. And then after research, the next kind of subsection I put is presentations and publications. We want to make sure that we're using APA guidelines when we are doing or documenting our presentations and publications. And presentations, if you present at TNOTA, if you present at AOTA, whether it's a poster or a course, this goes here. You could also put your presentation on that you did for your capstone or for your field work. So like the second one here, this was my capstone presentation. that my faculty mentor said, you're first author. So, put it out there. I'm so sorry. So don't discount all of the work that you do if you do have presentations at like TNOTA or posters at TNOTA or AOTA or your respective state organization, or even if you have your, I know sometimes universities will have research symposiums between the different colleges and organizations or programs within their respective colleges. So make sure you include that in there also. So the next couple of sections, I was talking about the career ladder earlier, or your work experience. I'm so sorry. Can you guys hear my dog barking in the background? Is it? Oh, you guys can't hear it. Oh, okay. It's really loud. Okay, so something I didn't mention about your work experience before is a typical rule of thumb is not to include anything in your resume that is greater than 5 years old, just for relevancy. Of course, if it's a job that you've had throughout that duration of 5 years, I wouldn't worry about that. But oh, hi. But less than 5 years is typically what we look for. And then after that, we want to put a heading for your volunteer experience. And this is, again, anything relevant to the job or fieldwork that you're applying to. And again, just brief to the point. You could just put the name of the organization. We want to be able to have it as a conversation starter. And then once you're in there on the interview, then you just be prepared to elaborate on it a little bit more. And then other relevant headings for you to have on your resume: leadership positions. So if you are involved in organizations from a state level, national level, or within your own program, and you're in a leadership position, you can put that there. Clubs or organizations. I actually, instead of clubs and organization, I like to use the word membership as my heading. And so that's where you put your, like, if you're in SOTA, if you are an AOTA member, if you're a TNOTA member, if you're a member of some other kind of organization, put that you are involved and you are an active member. You can, typically I put the year that I started. And so let's just say like 2019 to present. And then I don't really elaborate too much underneath those. I just keep short, sweet, and to the point. I know a lot of people nowadays have like educational social medias. I don't think that is bad to put that on your resume if it's coming from like an educational standpoint. I think that is a way to highlight your ability to articulate information to people, especially if you're looking into jobs that require that type of navigation. And then with certifications, things to include on there: your CPR certification, first aid certification. If you did SPSS training, that's a certification. These are all things too that, and you want to put the expiration on those certifications before I forget. You want to put those expirations there so that when an employer reads your resume, they're like, ah, boom, they have their, whatever certification, and it's not going to expire for 2 years. So then I know as employer, okay, I don't need them to go on the list to get this certification because they already have it. Any questions on these headings?
I have a question. I feel so bad. I feel like I've had a question.
No, please ask questions. It's awkward if I'm just
I
talking.
just need clarity on everything. But I just so for membership, I was wondering, so I already have, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I already have 5 things like membership that I've done here at TSU. So do you recommend that you just do the most recent things, or do you just usually do the most relevant? Because yeah, like I said, I already have 5 and I'm only in my first year of graduate school here. So obviously I feel like it would be kind of what's the word? Like, I don't know, premature to use things from like my undergrad experience. You know what I'm kind of getting at?
I think, well, are you still involved with them?
Some things, but not everything. Some things like, just end after undergrad. And also I did an undergrad in Alabama and now I'm in Tennessee. So some
Yeah, I
things.
mean, I think if you're still, the thing with membership is that if you're like a member, you're involved with it. And so if you are involved in it, I think that's totally fine to keep it on there. I don't think it's bad or anything to have multiple. If it's something where you're more of maybe just like part of it, or like maybe every now and then you maybe volunteer, I would say, does that go under a different heading instead? But no, I think if you're involved, you're involved.
Yeah, thank you.
And again, these are just my thoughts. You can take them or leave them.
For those memberships, should you have like previous memberships? Like maybe I'm not paying to be an AOTA right now, so I don't, but I did my first year, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would consider these active memberships.
Okay.
Because if I were to look at your resume and I see AOTA on there, and let me just say, like hypothetically, that I asked you about your membership and what you enjoy, and then you're like, well, actually,
Mm,
I'm not a member, but I was,
yeah.
so I would consider memberships to be active.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, hi. What other questions do you guys have? Because that's really like the end of the titles that you need for your resume. My final kind of thoughts, and I kind of shared this earlier, have one resume where you have everything. So these things that you guys have been asking me about, just have them all on there. When we're talking about describing what we're doing, use power words. Do you guys know what I mean when I say power words? So they're very actionable things that show intention or I don't want to say like education, but almost like expertise in what you did. So if I said that if I was a rehab tech, I helped out therapists with therapy things. I don't know. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. But if I were to say that I was responsible for organizing equipment, managing therapy schedules to support, I don't know, patient performance, like we really use these action power words that are like, oh, I owned that junk. I wasn't just a standby person, like, oh, I just helped. No, I was like responsible for these things. And it can be weird to talk about ourselves in that way. And I think a lot of times we discredit the skills that we do have. And so when we go to write it out or talk about ourselves, we're like, oh, yeah, I did this. But I would encourage you guys to really think of, and maybe this would be helpful, if a family member or a close friend or an advisor was describing your skills to somebody else, how would they talk about you? What kind of language would they use to talk about you? And if you want, you can go ask them and then just type out what they what they say about you. I think sometimes the self-reflection can be really hard when we're talking about ourselves. And maybe that's just me. Maybe y'all are like, I'm fine talking about myself. But I figured I would mention that because I know that I personally struggle with that. We want to keep it simple, very simple. We shouldn't have foo-foo words. And be prepared to elaborate on whatever you put on your resume. So if you think you just added something in there just to be sneaky or have something, I guarantee you they're going to ask you about it. And you'll be like, wait, I didn't actually want to talk about that. So just be prepared to elaborate again. It's like your I don't know if people use like dating profiles anymore, but you want them to swipe right on you. So what is your profile? Like your resume is your profile and you want them to swipe. If you put too much on your profile, no one's gonna read it. And they're gonna swipe left and you're gonna be sad. But not anymore because you guys have taken this workshop. And last thing, be confident in what you're bringing to the table. You guys are very skilled. You have gotten through the schooling or are currently in the schooling to get a really awesome degree. And you're going to impact people's lives in such a positive way. And really own that and be confident in what you're doing. And that is pretty much the end. I put my email up there and my Instagram if you guys want to hang. And just thank you for tuning in. And I want to open it back up to questions that you guys might have, or if you want me to pull up a Word document, I can to like show the different titles if that's helpful.
I have a question about, I guess maybe more formatting or layout. And I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's like a matter of personal preference. But do you have any like just initial thoughts on, like, I've always done a one pager, like no matter what, I will delete it. I will go to changing the line spacing so it's like one page.
Yes.
But maybe I'm old school. I don't know. But I've seen some resumes more recently where like they have kind of a sidebar and there's some info over there, and then they have the stuff over here. I mean, what do you think about that? Because then that in my experience, that has made the resume a lot longer, but it looks cool.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
it?
think for that type of, I was trying to find my resume just to like pull it up and show you guys what I did. I personally think simple is better for resumes, but if you want to do that, I think that's fine. I don't think it's going to take away from your job. I do think those ones are a little bit visually overstimulating. And I've edited some where even myself, I'm like, oh, like that's a lot. But it's also okay. Like you can make it work. Where do I not have a resume on here? Oh, nope. This is hilarious. I'm talking about resumes and I can't find mine. And it's weird, once I switched into academia, my resume looks different now, the way they do stuff. And so it's not based off of this. Let me see if you guys give me a moment. I know I have my resume somewhere around here. Or actually, no, let me just share this. This is so funny. Okay. There's the share button. Okay. Ugh. So this is how I'm assuming y'all can see this. So in my header, put that bad boy. And I just literally, I have a professional objective, write something super cool, and my education, write something super cool. And then field work, kind of like that screenshot that I showed you guys. Like I'll put my capstone, level 2, B, level 2, oh dear. And level 1 and so on and so forth. And then you can just put bullet points of what you did. Same with work experience, same with research. And then, if you want to bold certain things or if you want to underline certain things for however it makes sense, then you can do that. But I think for resumes, it's just simpler to keep it like this, but they look cute, the other ones that I've seen. But I think what's important, regardless of which way you choose, is to make sure you have all this information on there. So those, formatting aside, the concepts underneath each one is what's important. And making sure that you're still short, to the point, and that you're using power words to describe your experiences, and then that you're not excluding things that you've contributed to, whether it's a presentation or something that you've created. Like, we still want to keep all of that in there. Other questions or thoughts? Or has somebody done it differently or has different ideas? Okay. If I don't have anything else, that was all we had for the resume. Resumes are super simple once you have the skeleton. I think one of the harder things to come up with is the professional objective. And like really getting your voice into the wording of the professional objective. But I think once you have that down pat, everything else will be a breeze. I'm curious, okay, what year? Oh, well, first of all, are there any clinicians here? Not to put people on the spot. Me. Okay. And then I guess what programs are you guys all from? Well, I know some of you. I feel like I know the Tennessee State people now at this point. But what other programs are people from?
I actually go to Texas Women's University.
Yes, we got an out-of-stater.
I've been working on my resume. I graduate in May. So I saw your Instagram and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a sign.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. Any other
Thanks for having me.
out-of-staters? TSU always coming in hot. Awesome. Okay, well, any other thoughts? Or, I mean, we've got like 10, 15 minutes. So if you have questions about, I guess we could throw in some job stuff too, or interview stuff. Because they all,
I have a question.
yeah.
So I feel like maybe this was kind of talked about, but if your jobs are like not directly relevant, like other employment, I kind of put mine at the bottom of my resume, and then I put like my leadership experience and research and volunteering before that, because that was like
Yeah.
all the things I did in OT school.
Yeah, I think you can totally set it up that way.
Okay.
Yeah. I had put I worded it career ladder, and that's what I put like later on if it wasn't directly related to like work experience. I don't think I actually explained that, so thank you for mentioning it.
Hold on. So you said the career ladder is for jobs not related to OT or
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. And those ones you can put towards the bottom, and like she mentioned, putting like maybe the more relevant stuff like leadership or research into that. I don't think resumes, like if you have it swapped, I don't think that's going to make or break you for a job. And if it does, that's on the place that you're applying to. Because really the purpose of a resume, we just want it to show your skills. So if you choose to, or I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, I don't have this organized the exact way that I said it, then I'm not going to get a job. And that's not the case at all. I would say it's actually a very big red flag if a job is like, what are you doing with your resume like that? Because there's always also, I think I should mention, a conversation of should education be put at the beginning or at the end? I think it used to be for the longest time that education goes at the bottom of your resume, which I don't think is bad. I personally like it at the top so that they know you're like right off the bat, what's your degree? Especially if you're applying for an OT job. Or maybe it's open-ended, it's for OTs and OTAs. You put your degree up there right off the bat, they know who they're interviewing with. But again, that's just my perspective. Oh, yes. Well, this won't apply for my out-of-state friends, but there is I don't know, I feel like y'all could still join though if you want. It would be hilarious. So what if you guys haven't seen it, TNOTA, well, our Student Involvement Committee, we're doing a video contest for all of the different programs in the state of Tennessee for the SOTA programs to submit to, and the theme is just an OT trailer. So if you had to describe occupational therapy as a movie trailer, what would that look like? And so every program is encouraged, highly encouraged, to submit a video, And we have the information on the TNOTA website, but you have total creativity to submit whatever video you want. And then the winners, it'll be based off of voting on the TNOTA website, but the winners get a pizza party sponsored by TNOTA. And then we're going to show your video trailer at the TNOTA conference this fall, whoever wins. So you could do like, I don't know, OT adventures. You could do spooky OT. I don't know how that would work, but or a horror movie about OT and make it satirical, like, oh no, a reacher. I don't know. So just, talk it up with your peers, and we're gonna show them throughout OT month. And so the deadline is the last week in March so that we can air them throughout the month of April for OT month for people to see. That's pretty much everything. Thank you guys for being here. It was kind of short, simple, to the point, but I hope you got some tidbits to help you. And then you guys can always email me if you want, or I'm happy to like read. Like I said, it's therapeutic for me to edit resumes. So if you want to send them to me, I'm more than happy to look it over. Yay! Sweet. Okay. See you guys hopefully in person one day. That would be super cool. You made hearts on your video. Oh, so cool.
I can just send a little heart in the corner.
That is amazing.
This is a lot of love.
A lot of love. We love it.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much. And I have one more question, but I didn't want to keep everyone because I feel like I've asked too many questions already. I think I know the answer to this question, but I mean, it doesn't hurt to make sure. So for research, like I said previously, I've done graduate assistantships where my sole responsibility was research. So in undergrad, I went to Tuskegee University and I worked in the archives. And I had to do a lot of digitalization, research questions. It's a historical university, so people would call and be like, "Hey, it's my grandpa Booker T. Washington," and I'd have to go through yearbooks and all this crazy stuff and different kind of research. So I definitely got a lot more research experience than maybe what it would seem I did in a job title. So on my resume, I mostly put it under work experience, but I do think I got a lot of research experience. And I was wondering, what do you all suggest? That I keep it under work experience or put it under research experience?
You could do either. I like it under work experience with maybe a bullet point that says researched. Like that could be one of your power words, like researched XYZ, I think that would be a good place for it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for answering all my questions and having so much patience with me. I really appreciate it. I think my resume is something that I always get tripped up over because I don't really like to brag on myself, but I have done a lot, when I'm looking at things, I think that I'm qualified for stuff, but it's just when I have to explain to someone, I'm like, well, dang, what did I do? Even though I know I've done a million things. So
yeah, you're awesome.
Thank you so much, guys.
I also had a quick research question. So I worked in a couple labs in my undergrad, but that was exactly 5 years ago. So would that be okay to include still once I graduate, or should I take it off?
I personally like having research on there. I think having research experience on your resume is different than additional work experience.
Mm-hmm.
The type of skills that you're gaining are maybe a little bit different and a bit more specialized. And so I would be okay with that. I think when I graduated, I kept my undergraduate research experience on there for
Okay.
still be on there.
Great. Thank you.
But I kept it on because it's a different type of work experience that
Mm-hmm.
has a bit more intensity. I don't know if that's the right
Yeah.
word. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kaylin, do you have a snail and eye chart on your wall?
Oh, what?
A snail and eye chart?
Yes, but it's insect.
It's
My
what?
best friend got it for me.
Oh,
It's
insect. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is amazing. I saw it too, and I was like, "That looks
You're
familiar."
that's a vision. How cool. I'm so familiar with those. I'm so blind, you guys, but okay. Always failing those. But okay, it was good seeing you, Kaylin.
Yeah, you too.
Probably this week. And thank you guys again.
Thank
Yeah,
you
you're
so much.
welcome.
This was really, really helpful.
Oh, good.
Thanks. Bye.